Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. The subject for today, election 2020. I want to focus on the Democrats. Actually, I want to focus on Joe Biden, the one Democrat out of, I've lost count, but it has to be, in fact, I'm sure it is over 20 declared Democratic candidates so far. The election is about a year and a half away. Already 20 candidates on the Democratic side. This is going to be a fun primary to watch. Won't be much on the Republican side because we know who the candidate is, Donald Trump, in case some of you have been wondering. Bernie Sanders was the presumed front runner for months now, but ever since Joe Biden declared his candidacy, he's moved up very rapidly. Until today, we have a poll showing Joe Biden leaping 32 points ahead of Bernie Sanders. Way, way ahead, and needless to say, way, way ahead of all these approximately 20 other candidates. So it seems he's already gearing up for his campaign, starting to express the themes of his campaign. One is that Donald Trump is a bad guy. Biden says he wants to restore the moral tone to our country, which is kind of funny coming from the vice president in the administration that gave us the Hillary Clinton emails, the Fast and Furious gun running scandal. I could go on, but that's not the subject for today. Today I want to focus on what apparently is going to be Biden's other theme for the election. Now, he can't talk about the economy. He's not pinning a bad economy on Donald Trump because we don't have a bad economy. Can't pin a war on him because we're not at war. He can't pin minority unemployment on Trump because minority employment is up. Same thing for women. But if you're a Democrat, you always have one go-to subject, meme, whatever you want to call it, and that's the race card. You can always play the race card if you're a Democrat. It's your go-to excuse for losing an election. It's your go-to reason that you should win an election. So today we have Joe Biden playing the race card, bringing up Jim Crow. Specifically, he's saying that we've got Jim Crow coming back in. What he's talking about is this constant subject of Democrats' voter suppression. Well, he's pretty much coming out and saying that Republicans are racist. In fact, he says Republicans lose when all Americans have an equal right to vote. Well, all Americans have an equal right to vote. Now, these Jim Crow laws that he's talking about, Uncle Joe should be reassured on that account because the Democrats who enacted these Jim Crow laws, the Democrats who enforce these Jim Crow laws, they've been out of office for years. They've been replaced by Republicans. And once you replace Democrats with Republicans, no more Jim Crow laws. If you don't believe me, go find me a Jim Crow law in any state run by a Republican. Which brings us to a closely related subject that I want to get to. Because when Democrats rail against these supposed voter suppression laws, what they really mean is voter identification. The simple requirement that if you want to vote, you have to show ID, demonstrate that you're an American citizen with a right to vote. So Biden's really not saying Republicans lose when all Americans have equal right to vote. He's saying that they win when non-Americans who do not have a right to vote have the ability, they never have the right, but they have the ability to vote. And the way you accomplish that is by not asking for ID. Now, what is the logic? What is the reasoning behind this proposition that's simply asking a prospective voter to show ID to demonstrate a right to vote is voter suppression? When you get down to it, actually before I get down to what I was going to get down to, I would like to mention that As I've said in earlier videos, I recently moved to where I am now, Tennessee, from New York City, where I lived for 40 years. The last 10 or so of those 40 years were spent in Harlem. So when you're talking about voter suppression, specifically suppression of minority votes, I know something of what I'm talking about because I lived in Harlem. And by the way, if I can just put a little aside here, I had a conversation with a Hispanic man. He is as much against illegal immigration as Donald Trump is. So put that in your pipe and smoke that, liberals. That's a subject for another video. I'll get to it someday, but I wanted to get that out. This idea that you're somehow insulting Hispanic people by simply requiring immigrants or potential immigrants coming from Mexico and Central America to come into the country legally. Hispanics are true blue, red-blooded Americans, as American as I am and as you are. They oppose illegal immigration too, and that is a real insult to assume that they support illegal immigration. That's false, that's nonsense, but that's another subject for another day. As usual, I'm wandering, so let's get back on track to Joe Biden, Democrats, and voter suppression. Here is a video. I'm going to link to it. I'll show you some screenshots from the video. It's a YouTube video. It's a video by a man named Ami Horowitz. The video is basically divided into two parts. The first part is Horowitz walking around California, talking to passersby, asking them if they thought requiring people to show ID to vote is racist.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and I'm here in Berkeley, California to find out if voter ID laws suppress the black vote. Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed.
These people, at least the ones in the video, all say requiring voters to show ID to vote is racist. These are all presumably, well, it's pretty obvious that they're liberal Democrats. They say, number one, most minorities or a lot of minorities don't have any ID. So it's unfair to ask them to produce ID because so many black people simply don't have ID. That's number one. Number two, they say black people, well, frankly, they say they're too stupid to figure out how to get ID. So if you're a black person watching this, you might want to go watch some walk away videos of black people walking away from the Democratic Party. And this, I'm sure, is one reason that Democrats really do think you're stupid. A lot of them. You can see it in the video. You can hear them saying so, that they cannot figure out that they need ID to vote or how to get ID to vote. They don't know where the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, in their area is to go and register to vote. This is what Democrats think, that if you're a black person, you're stupid. Now there's an unspoken reason which would surface if they say, as they would protest. We don't think black people are stupid, despite the evidence that you see in this video that I just pointed you to. If that's true, then that means they do deliberately want illegal aliens to vote. They want people who do not have a right to vote. And all the rest of it is just a smokescreen. Which brings us to the second part of Ami Horowitz's video. This is the interesting part, especially to me, because as I told you, I lived in Harlem. He walked around Harlem and he approached black people on the street and he asked them,
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Me?
What does that say to you?
I know it's that, on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is around you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Would you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Do you have ID? They all had ID. Are you offended if you have to show ID to vote?
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Are you cool?
Love showing my ID.
You got no problem with that?
Nope.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Nobody was offended. Nobody was offended. They all had ID. Oh, and another justification that the people in California gave was that black people are too poor to afford cell phones, and oh, this is really good, and they don't know how to use the internet. So Horowitz asked these black passersby in Harlem the specific questions. Do you have a cell phone? They all had a cell phone. In fact, some of the people in the video are videotaped holding a cell phone or earbuds in their ears. So they had cell phones. They were asked if they know how to use the internet. They all knew how to use the internet. And then they were asked the key question. This is the real key question that every black person watching this video should pay special attention to. Horowitz told them what the people in California had said about them being too stupid, about them not knowing how to use the internet, about them not having ID, about them not knowing how to get ID. And they said,
what does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process was.
I just think that's ignorant.
Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the word
Very,
I'm hearing
very
a lot.
ignorant.
Ignorant.
Very, very ignorant.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you know, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
which is nonsense. They're not ignorant, they're racist. They think black people can't figure out how to get ID and how to register to vote. That is exactly what they said. Go back, watch the video, then put it in the comments. Tell me how I'm wrong, how I'm misinterpreting what I'm seeing with my own eyes, hearing with my own ears. The less charitable Harlem residents said that it was an insult, which is exactly what it is. It's an insult, and these people in California obviously believed this. And it's important to note that these Californians obviously are not Democratic Party political operatives. They're rank and file, Joe Public Democrats. So when they talk about black folks being too stupid, too ignorant, too whatever you want to call it, they mean it. They actually believe it. They are not the Democratic leadership who I believe are using this whole voter suppression idea as a smokescreen to, well, basically to shame Republicans into not enacting voter ID laws. Finally, my 3 recommendations, and then I'll wind up the video for today. Number 1, Republicans should stand strong on voter ID laws. Do not let yourself be dissuaded or shamed or frightened out of enacting these very necessary laws to ensure that only people who are entitled to vote, vote. Number 2, you Democrats on the ground, you rank and file Democrats who, as we've seen, believe that black people are stupid, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should really be ashamed of yourselves. And finally, you Democrats who are black or Hispanic, you should think about whether you're in the right party. Maybe it's time for a change. And that's it for today. So, well, you know the drill. Thumbs up if you liked the video. Share it with your friends if you think somebody would benefit from the video. If you have any comments, put them in the comments below the video, because I'm very interested in hearing what you think. You heard what I think. I want to hear what you think. And finally, if you have any suggestions for a subject you would like me to discuss, put that in the comments too. I'll try to accommodate you. Oh, and last, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Then you won't miss any future videos. And that's it. Bye.